për këtë publike.
Kombinime e heterogene interesante shumë.
Se pluma që nga të, ka plua këtë bati, ka plua se ka pakë, nuk jam antarë i liberalisë. Të zotë Mustafa së mund të tore presidenti të Kosovës. Të dashur, fillimisht faleminderit për të gjitha reagimet pozitive që keni pasur dhe të gjitha sugjerimet për emisionin e parë. Kjo javë ishte e mbushur për plot lajme. Kosova do të pajiset me armatim të rënd. Për armët, qeveria dhe opozita kanë hyrë në luftë. Jo në luftë me Serbinë e as për veriun e Kosovës, por për diçka shumë më të shtrejtë. Për merita dhe mbi të gjitha për vota. Qysh ka thonë Ledri Vula, merita na, merita ta, merita asnjone. E kur jemi të armët, më në fund qeveria e Kosovës miraton sigurimin jetësor për policët e Kosovës, tash e tutje se cili polic do të ketë armë të gjata. Ku po do një sigurim më të mirë? Lajmi mirë ishte edhe liberalizimi vizave me Emiratet e Bashkuara. E kam fjallën për Dubai, për deni jo. Deri me sot liberalizimin e kishën vetëm modelet e Kosovës, tash e tutje edhe qytetarët do ta kenë atë. E në kryeqytetin e modës Rom, tash më kemi ambasad, por këtë javë u paralajmërua hapja një misioni special në Vatikan, ndërkaq sulmet ndaj gjykatës kushtetuese kanë vazhduar nga qeveria e Kosovës. Jo ndaj gjykatës kushtetuese të Serbisë, ndaj gjykatës kushtetuese të Kosovës. Pra, ndërsa përparime Tajqi, sheshin George Bush do ta shndrojnë në Disneyland, në Paris. Le Sarkozy de le Jacques Chirac mot de président Poutine, la criant. Edhe kemi po ashtu protestues në kryeqytet të cilët kanë dalë dhe kanë protestuar kundër këtij sheshe. Me gjithë këtë mbidos të lajmeve të mira, kjo shënon javën me gabimet më të mëdha të leadershipit shpirtëror dhe politik. E pabesueshme, por e vërtet, shumë e vërtet, kryeministri Kurti ka ngatruar emrat edhe mbi emrat. Gjeniu e mbi njeriu i zbritur nga qielli për të shfëtuar Kosovën nga režimi vjetër, me bo gabime tilla, unbelievable, e pabesueshme. Një javë ku Albini nuk ishte Amini dhe Kurti nuk ishte Kulti. Edhe presidenti e Kosovës shpalli liberalizimin me Emiratet ende pa ndodhur, ndërsa opozita këtë javë ka mungu. Duket se është në skem, pse jo vëlla, edhe opozita duhet me pushu najherë. Ndërsa në pjesën e dytë, do ta kemi një rrëfim unik për rrugtimin jetësor të dëshmitarit të çlirimit, lirisë dhe pavarësisë së Kosovës, ambasadorit William Walker, me të cilën do zhvillojmë një bisedë të padëgjuar më parë. Jam shumë i lumtur që ambasadorën e kemi sonte në ZEN, ndërsa ekskluzivisht e kemi edhe liderin e Partisë Demokratike, Shali Berisha! Jo, tash ta themun me një dedikim emocional të animuar nga dritarja e pallatit për qytetarët e Kosovës. E për armatosjen e vetëvendosjes, për armatosjen e Kosovës, do të zhvillojmë një bisedë të animuar me Bekim Haxhiun, i cili në luftë ka mbajtur nofkën në Kamishje. Zotë Kurti, është vërtet që... Në përmbledhje, më të sokë të javës, do të bëjmë në rubriken Lamjet e javës. Ende pa ardhur armët e rënda nga Shtetet e Bashkuara të Amerikës në Kosovë, tash më ka filluar lufta. Nëse keni menduar me Serbinë, e keni shumë gabim.
Është për Mitrovicën të shka? Ha?
Jo, as për Mitrovicën. Lufta ka fillu për merita dhe vota. Madje në këtë debat është përfshirë edhe shoqëria civile dhe gazetarët. Nejse, ne kemi blerë antitankë në kohën kur tankët nuk janë përcaktuese për të fituar luftën. Po dorë zemër, po vojnë e kemi bërë me antitankë. Veç kësaj radhe shpresoj që mos të përdoren kundër objekteve shtetërore të Kosovës. E reagimet e para kanë ardhur edhe nga Serbia. ZEN ka siguruar pamje ekskluzive të presidentit serb Aleksandar Vučić, i cili shihet në gjendje shumë të rëndë shëndetësore dhe në dëshpërim shumë të thellë. E pat edhe jo Vučićin, djalin nuk është mirë, nuk e di nëse në Beograd ka ndaj farë qendër të rehabilitimit që është shtimja, po dorën zemër dhe s'ka pasur për faj se po getu që këja e kalon këgja shumë trauma Vučićit. Bile thanë që do trauma Vučićit ja kishë shkaktu edhe besnik Beslimi. Për të komentuar blerjen e antitankëve amerikane, do të flasim me Bekim Haxhiu, i cili në luftë ka mbajtur nofkën në Kamishje. Përshëndetje, Kamish.
Përshëndetje, Artan.
A je edhe ti në skemë si pjesa tjetër e opozitës, apo jo?
Jo, nuk jam në skemë. Une që 2 javë kam fillu me hapërova. Thjesht me u bo gati për luse Gjelali Albini e kanë për një mend një qyshe kam pas në vitën 1999. Njoni ka dezertu në start e tjetëri pas 10 ditëve.
O, nuk të qkapën kur rovat dhe lufta. Boll more kemi luftuna. Kryeministri ka thonë që unë edhe Gjelali doj me kry luftën kësaj radhe. A beson të këta jo?
Ata veç mundën me kall në i luse tybe as njonit luftës nuk janë. Këta lidhe me pajisë ushtarake nuk kanë. Armet këta i kanë pa veç kur kanë luajtur Counter-Strike dhe Fortnite.
Nejse, nuk kisha thonë Kamish, si e vlerëson me gjitha të ardhjen e antitankëve amerikane, pra që pritet të vinë në Kosovë, si e vlerëson të këta?
Kur të vinë këto antitankët amerikane, veç kur të shë këta televizës vetëvendose, to lojt me to si Talibanet pas ikjes amerikanëve në Afganistan.
Po jo se krejt pa përvoj as këta nuk janë. Do më thonë, i kanë gati 4 vjetë në pushtet, do gjëra besoj që i kanë mësua, po jo?
Këta kanë bërë përvoj veç qysh me vjedh në kek, në infrastruktur, mjekësi e tjerë. e kanë keq menaxhu qindra miliona euro. Po shqyr që armët përfundojnë në FSK e atë ende ka djem e gra që kanë luftu në ushtrinë çlirëmtare Kosovës.
Po ndoshta nuk është mirë me hy në financa, kamesh njëherë kryeministit ka paralajmëruar që me financa nuk bën me u marrë, po mendoj nuk merr vesh në ekonomi, sepse e keni kry doktoraturën e fizioterapisë, pra, cila është përgjigjja juaj për këtë akuzë?
Po nëse ka dikush në Kosovë nevojë për fizioterapi është kryeministri Albin Kurti. Sa herë që Kosova ka pas nevojë për të, ai e ka krus shpinën dhe ka ikë. Këtan ditën rrën në zyre ullën kosh puna marë nuk i ka thonë. Këtë asë sërete nuk mundet me qitë në vend.
Faleminderit zoti Haxhiu, ishte Bekim Haxhiu Kamishi, ndërsa kur jemi të armatimi, javën e shkuar ministri i brendshëm doli në aeroport për të bekuar ardhjen e armëve të gjata për policinë e Kosovës. Edhe ju të pakt që nuk e keni besuar se luftën e kemi afër, tash besoj që policinë kur të shenit të armatosur deri në dhëm në rrugë do të bindeni për këtë. Me këtë rast, Sfeqla ka thënë se pagat e policisë bashkë me pajiset janë rritur nga 10.000 euro, sa kështë të thënë kryeministri, në 12.000 euro. I pytur nëse policia e sa po pajisur me automatik gancë të ri, do të ketë sigurime jetësore, Sfeqla me këtë rast për ZEN-in ka thënë. Po ku po dënë sigurime më të mëdha jetësore bre se sa me pas automatik të ri në duar, ka thënë Sfeqla para gazetarëve. Bezbele, se ka keq, unë e të mendu që rritja ekonomike, ngritja cilësisë në arsim, transformimi teknologjik janë sigurimi maj madh jetësor i qytetarëve. Do më thonë, krejbre gabimisht e kemi mësu gjanat kej gabimisht. Besim ende në temën e luftës, këtë javë ka rifilluar punën gjykata speciale. Prokuroria speciale ka paralajmëruar se do të shërbet edhe me deklaratat të njerëzve të vdekur në mënyrë që të sigurohet me çdo kusht që krerët e UÇK-s të dënohen për së gjalli. Duket se prokuroria e gjykatës speciale ka siguruar deklaratat e Nikola Pashiqit, i cili kishte deklaruar se shqiptarët e shquar duhet të vriten me pistolet, ndërsa fshatarët me mitraľoz dhe topa. Prokuroria ka marrë edhe deklaratën e ish-kryeministit të Serbisë Vladan Đorđević, i cili ka thënë që shqiptarët kanë bisht, paramendoni. Nga themeluesi i UDB-s dhe kasapi shqiptarëve Aleksandar Ranković kanë marrë deklaratën ku thonë se shqiptarët duhet të vriten si lepujt. Për të bindur qytetarët e pa bindur të Kosovës, e gjykata speciale është duke bërë një punë të mrekullueshme për të ndryshuar historinë e Kosovës. Kryetari i kësaj gjykate sërish është betuar në krye të nënës. Ta dëgjojmë. Qysh bre përben kjo si me konë vështëresa, vëden, pasha qita nimet, pasha qita uj, ose nga podojeva që thojnë pasha Musafin. A ne ka Mitrovica thojnë pasha qita dysy. Veç kur të shenë tash videot e kosovarëve në Paris, Berlin e Cëret të i detyru këtat jashtet me shanë Shqepa, vëden. Nejse, ndërkohë presidenti Osmani i ka postuar një foto me papën Franceskon. Presidentja ka paralajmëruar hapjen e misionit special në Selinë e Shenjtë. Si shenjtë falënderimi, presidentja Osmani papës ja ka dhuruar një palto të dizajnuar nga dizajneri saj personal Valdrin Sahiti. Po i mungon papës veç edhe një çantë kështu e këraho që po i vinojnë këta burrat me para shumë. Nejse, do foto tjera të papës, duke u shfrenu, nuk po i publikojmë. Krishti qoftë me papën Santa Maria de Bartos. E kur jemi të liberalizimi i vizave, vazhdon të jetë temë edhe me tutje në Kosovë. Kryeministri Kurti këtë javë i mori meritat edhe për këtë proces. Madje tha se ashtu si që kam heq vizat, ashtu do t'i heq edhe sankcionet. ZEN sjell pamje ekskluzive të cilat vërtetojnë se kryeministri Kurti kishte në dorë dhe ishte përcaktues për përshpejtimin e liberalizimit të vizave. Besoj që pak gaz nuk i kish bo keq as evropianëve, besoj që ja u kish kfjell pamjen pak. E për Amerikan, ata dhe ashtu janë brenajv, ata nuk kanë haber për këtë punë. Pas 3 vjet qeverisë perfekte pa gabime dhe me investime marramense, punësime mbi 200.000 qytetarë në diasporë, për kursimin e 700 milion eurove, kjo javë do të hyjë në histori si java e gabimeve për kryeministrin e Kosovës Kurtin. Pas 2 dekadave të hamendjes, këtë javë u vërtetua që kryeministri Albin Kurti nuk është mbinjëri, nuk është gjeniu i pagabush. Është thjesht një njeri nga mishët e gjoku. Dhe pas 3 vjet qeverisë, Kurti duket se ka filluar të tregoj shenja të lodhës. Pamje ku ai përshfaq genialitetin se kjo duket se do t'jenë edhe me tutje shumë të ralla. Edhe prezantimet të këtilla do të jenë poashtu shumë të ralla. Luani ka shfaqur për herë të parë shenja të lodhjes. E di që janë pamje shumë të rënda, por të vërteta. Pas orës së Saradranit dhe dështimit për të përfunduar rrugën për Gjilan dhe në Podujev, një sukses i madh i qeverisë Kurti është rruga Prishtinë-Mitrovica. Në mandatin e Albin Kurtit janë shtruar hiç më pak se 500 metra, 100, 200, 300, 500 metra. Urime, suksese. Në fakt, rruga Prishtina-Mitrovica tash e 24 vjet mbetet e njëjtë. Secila qeveri që ka ardhur e ka shtruar ka 1 kilometra në vit. Me këtë tempo, rruga përfundon në vitin 2053. Ndërkohë shohim se çfarë ka ndodhur në botë derisa ne kemi qenë të zënë me ndërtimin e kësaj rruge. Është ndërtuar ndërtesa më lartë në botën e Emiratet e Bashkuara dhe Putini i ka ndezë një 3 ose 4 lufta me pasoja globale në botë. Kina ndërkohë e ka fut në treg koronavirusin, derisa ne jemi marrë me rrugën Prishtinë-Mitrovica, bota ka zbuluar iPhone-in, veturat elektrike, derisa Kosova është bërë e pavarur. Besoni apo jo, Podojeva është bërë ndërkohë me semafora dhe Saradrani me urë. Se politikanët kosovarë me gjitha të kanë premtuar, dhe jo e dini që kur premtojnë politikanët kosovarë ata premtimet i mbojnë 100%, kanë premtuar se ndërtimi rrugës nuk do të zgjasë sa ndërtimi murit kinez. Pra, diku më pak se 2500 vjetë. Anide, edhe ne kur ta përfundojmë do të shihet rruga jo nga Hana, por nga Cërnusha. Dhe këtë javë, ky lajm ka qenë një dukuri shumë e çuditshme në tërë hemisferën shqiptare. Për një herë dhe në mënyrë të pashpjegueshme, shqiptarëve po ju hupin gratë. A bën me na të regu o vlaqit sekret qysh po ju hupin grata, në besoj që plot shqiptarë janë të interesu me ditë qysh të hup gruja, po kupton? E kur jemi në Shqipëri, tani do të shohim se çfarë po bën lideri Partisë Demokratike Sali Berisha, i cili po bën opozit nga dritarja. Parëndo këta në Kosovë s'po bojnë opozit as nga dritarja, as nga dera, as në shesh, as kërkon e vla. Po, qëfar po, nejse. Po, këtu shjetë edhe qëfar bën Amerika nëse nuk e dëgjën, pra, kjo është një farë mesazh edhe për liderët e Kosovës, nëse janis në qështoni jo gjilani muhalit, muni me përfundu në pengjere se Sali Berisha. Po tani do të lidhemi drejt për drejt me Sali Berishën, i cili edhe me 70 e sa kusur vjet ka më shumë energji se krejt opozita Kosovës së Bashku. Edhe energjinë e Sali Berishës me konvertu në energji elektrike, Kosova dhe Shqipëria për 60 vjet nuk kishin pas nevojë për energji elektrike. Zoti Berisha, fjala për ju.
Të dashur vëllezër të Kosovës, ju flas nga dritarja lirisë, dritarja shpresës, dritarja demokracisë, dritarja nga ku do të ringjallim revolucionin e viteve të 90-të, për rrëzimin e verhogjës së dytë Edvin Kristoq Robu. Nga kjo dritare vogël, do hapim dyrë të mëdha të lirisë, portat gjigante të demokracisë, horizonte të pakufishme të shpresës, për një Shqipëri dhe Kosovë të bashkuar kundër trastarit të Covid Edi Rama. Të dashur vëllezër të Kosovës, nuk do lëm shkëmbi, kodër pa shembur, për të jetësuar bashkimin e trojave shqiptare. Prandaj bashkoni edhe ju, rreth dritares së lirisë, që të ndriqojmë rrugën e ndryshimit të madh që po vjen. Zoti e bekoft Shqipërinë, Zoti e bekoft Kosovën. O sot, o kur.
Në kuadër të sportit e kemi edhe një penalti e cila goditet nga kryeparlamentari Glauk, as kësi konjufta. Ta shikojmë së bashku nëse Glauku mund të shënoj gol. E provojmë javën ashme sërish. Ndërojmë temë shikues të ndëruar, këtë javë kemi shkrime heretike nga vetëm suroj. Kjo rubrik i dedikohet vetëm mallogaraxhanëve, familjeve pinjolle dhe aristokrate, dhe për ata që kryhen me gisht të vogël. Nuk preferohet të shikohet nga qytetarë që kanë ardhur pas luftës në Prishtinë dhe ata të moshës nën 70 vjet. Sugjerohet që afër vetës të marrin një fjalor latinisht shqip dhe spanisht shqip.
Buenas noches, amigos. Lufta, Uranusi dhe nga një proka. Dy të rinë duke ecur mbi re. Uranusi duke qpuar qiellin sapo krijuar në stadin e primatoriumit. Një biolog afgan do të zbuloj akullin e nxehtë në galaktikën 300 vjet drit nga Teryn. Gani Proka, nga një praktikues i planifikimit dhe projektimit të ideve dhe përvojave me përmbajtje vizuale dhe tekstuale shndrohet në skllavopronar. Përpara janë rret e bardha, mbrapa rret e zeza, mbi ato të bardha dhe nën ato të zeza. Në mes asgjë. Dy burra në mezomosh lundrojnë përpara në qiellin e 6, në qiellin më poshtë se qielli i 7. Lundronin ka qielli ngrirë dhe akulli i shkrirë, duke ja kthyer gjoksin qiellit dhe akulli tjetër, aty mbi qiellin e ngrirë. Kështu në fund, ne si subqenie njerëzore kornizojmë veprimet tona, leximin, shkrimin, adhurimin, punën, krijimtarin, projektimin e armërisë. Kornizojmë rrëfimet, apo rrëfimet bëhen kornizë.
Okej. Pasi shkrimi heretik, ftoj qytetarët që të marrin vitaminin për ngjalljen e qelizave të trurit, si ato B, C, D, omega 3 dhe mineralet, sepse truri i nën njeriu si puna jon nuk i përballon thellësinë e përmbajtjes së këtyre shkrimeve heretike të mbi njeriu veton surroj. Me shkrime heretike përmbyllim pjesën e parë të emisionit të ZEN. Në pjesën e dytë mund të ndiqni një rrëfim breslënës personal dhe emocional të ambasadorit William Walker. Për mua dhe mbar shqiptarët, ambasadori Walker është lajmtari jo vetëm i një ndër masakra më të tmerrshme në Kosovë. Ai ishte lajmtari i çlirimit, i lirisë së Kosovës. Të gjithë e njohin kontributin e tij përcaktues për lirinë dhe pavarësinë e Kosovës. Por sonte është hera e parë që në një televizion shqiptar do të mësoni shumë për fëmijërinë e tij, për prindërit, për emigrimin e tyre në Shtetet e Bashkuara të Amerikës, për familjet dhe fëmijët e tij. Pyetjet patjetër flasim edhe për Kosovën, për miqt, qytetet dhe ushqimin e tij të preferuar. Welcome to the show, Ambassador Walker. All Albanians around the world, especially in Kosovo, recognize your contribution before, during, and after the war for the freedom, for the liberation, for the independence of Kosovo. And in this 2 decades, you were the advocate for Kosovo. So you talked so much about Kosovo. Even when people ask you about your name, you will say something for Kosovo, for Kosovo too. And I'm very honored to have you tonight as a guest. And we are very, very grateful for your contribution. But tonight it's time not to talk so much about Kosovo, but to talk about William Walker. So tonight I didn't invite you as Ambassador Walker. Tonight I invite you as William, and thank you for being here.
It's my pleasure to be here. I'm always ready to talk about William, if you're ready to listen.
Yeah, of course, anytime. So you grew up in New Jersey and in California as well. But Scotland is the hometown of your parents. Can you tell us more about your family roots?
As far as I know, my family roots all come from Scotland. My parents immigrated to the United States in the early 20s, and essentially most of their families came with them, brothers, sisters, cousins. And they went to a town in New Jersey called Kearney, in which back then was almost exclusively Scots from Paisley, Scotland. And I think most of them came to the United States because back then Scotland was still an impoverished part of Europe. Jobs were hard to come by. My mother came from a very humble family. My father came from a little more prosperous family, but they both moved to the United States for economic opportunity, for whatever was the impression they had in Scotland of the United States. But the part of New Jersey I lived in was predominantly Scottish people. And I grew up with a Scottish accent. I grew up enjoying, and I still do.
Do you remember something from that time? When it comes to the accent?
I can sing songs of Scottish folk songs, but I've lost my Scottish accent. I was 12 years of age when I left New Jersey. My family moved out to California. My father had a health problem, and he had to get to a drier climate, and we ended up moving to California, which was a big shift in my life. Luckily, I was educated in the schools of New Jersey, which were very strict and very high in education. When I got to California, more relaxed, more time at the beach, more sun, more surfing. And so from the age of 12, I was living in California, and there I had a very comfortable life. New Jersey's cold, has snow.
True,
California, a lot of sun.
Yeah, and your story sounds like also the story of Kosovars, because many Kosovars emigrated not only in the United States but also across Europe. So you are a son of immigrants. How was difficult to integrate in a new society like it was the United States at that time for you and your family, especially?
Well, I think it was at times they never talked about it, that it was difficult for my parents. They had grown up in Scotland. They left Scotland as adults and became part of the Scottish diaspora, I guess, in New Jersey. I didn't suffer any problems from being the son of immigrants. Today, immigrants it's a controversial subject now.
That's true.
Back then, it wasn't. The United States was proud of the immigrants that came, and we still are, but there are some who are not as proud, and so it's a different situation today. Unlike Kosovars who arrive in the United States as immigrants, sometimes there are language difficulties, sometimes there are cultural problems. That was not true of English-speaking Scots. The town I grew up in had, Scottish bakeries, Scottish restaurants. So I really grew up as a Scot.
It was a little Scotland inside
in the United States. Yeah.
And your father and Uncle Bill were apparently very successful in the United States. So when your uncle's rugs even grazed in the White House, can you tell us about that story? Because it was very interesting to read that.
Well, my Uncle Bill was the oldest brother of my father's family, and he was the first to go to the United States. He served in World War I in the American Army, but he was a rug designer. That was his talent, and he was very successful at it. And as you said, he designed a very, it was famous, I guess, back then. It's called the Liberty Rug, and it was put in the White House under Woodrow Wilson.
Oh, Woodrow Wilson.
When Woodrow Wilson was the president. When Woodrow Wilson had a stroke and left the White House, apparently his wife asked for the rug, and they took it to what is now the Woodrow Wilson Museum in Washington.
So today it's in the museum?
It's in the museum.
Oh.
My sister, my only sibling, 25 years ago, she heard that the rug was taken from the White House by the Wilsons, and she spent years trying to find out if they had stolen it. And she finally discovered it. It was in the museum. And my Uncle Bill was, he was the most cultured of my relatives. He was the one who convinced me to go to college. He was the one who convinced me to study first architecture. He was the one who convinced me that I should try out this thing called the diplomatic service. He was very influential in my youth.
And your mother too?
My mother was from Scotland. She was from a very humble family. And back then, wives from Scotland were housewives.
Yeah.
So she cooked and she took care of the house and she raised me and my sister. I have very, very fond memories of both my parents. I had a happy childhood. We didn't have much, but we had a happy home. That's my mother holding my sister.
Yes.
Holding my sister and
you.
And me, yes.
George, you look the same also today.
I look the same.
You never changed.
if you tell me I look the same as there's the real picture of me that I will have in the book.
Now the picture.
That's me in New Jersey. That's me as a young Scot in Atlantic City during the war, during World War II. And yet there I am as a tennis player.
Yeah. So your hobby was tennis?
Tennis was my sport. Tennis was my sport.
Yeah.
And California back then produced all the tennis players from California. They didn't quite appreciate my tennis, but I tried.
Yeah.
And so I played a lot of tennis. Yeah. Thank you. I'm glad you.
Perfect.
I'm glad we had that.
Yeah. But Uncle Bill was the person who inspired you so much for the career, for the culture, life. How was your relation to him?
Well, for me, he was an old man. He was, when I remember meeting him, he was in his 60s, which for me was a very old man. He maintained his health until he died. And he took me to Manhattan, to New York City, took me to museums, took me to art galleries, tried to impress me with culture, I guess. He also, as I say, was very important in when I was thinking about trying to get into the Foreign Service. He would bring books home that were about life in the Foreign Service, biographies and that sort of thing. He was a big influence on me, but to me, he was this old man. You know, I am now
24.
No, I'm now 8 years older than he was when he died.
Yeah.
And so I'm a much older man.
You look very young still,
Pardon?
Ambassador. You look very young. So, and can you share, because can you share also some memories from you watching the newsreels about World War II with your father? So how did those experiences and as a child shaped your understanding about war?
That's an interesting question, because as a kid, as you say, my father took me to see the newsreels whenever we could. And I saw World War II, both from the German, European side, also with the war against Japan. I saw a lot of newsreels, and of course I saw an awful lot very critical of Hitler, very critical of the Japanese. I vividly remember the day of Pearl Harbor. I was 6 at the time, and I remember the shock with which the United States entered that war and how patriotic we all were, including me. You know, I dressed up as a soldier, and I dressed up as a sailor, and I was very proud of being an American fighting against fascism in Germany and the Japanese who had attacked us in Pearl Harbor. So I was a very patriotic American back then. You know, I still am, but in a very different way.
Of course, and no one in Kosovo will believe, but first you study architecture.
Yes.
Why do you choose this field at that time, back at that time?
Again, my Uncle Bill.
Okay.
I as a youngster in California, as I say, I wasn't terribly serious about the educational side of things, but I got very involved in art. I like to draw. I was also very interested in other things that have to do with architecture, the artwork of architecture. And so my Uncle Bill convinced me that the best thing I could do was become an architect.
Yeah.
And I was admitted to the University of Southern California, which still has a very good school of architecture. And I went there for 3 years out of a 5-year program on a scholarship. And I was not very successful at it. I would have been a horrible architect. And luckily, at the end of my 3rd year, and by then I knew I was not going to be a good architect. Plus,
you tried at least?
The School of Architecture had no women. Yeah. So I was in the USC University, which is known for being a party school.
This doesn't motivate you to be part in a class where women are not there, right?
I didn't know that when I joined, when I got the scholarship. But I went there thinking I was going to a school where they had a lot of party life.
Yeah.
And in the School of Architecture, they had none.
All geeks around.
Yeah. So, and it was architecture is a serious study.
That's true. And where was the tipping point when you switched
in
to international relations?
In 1956, my sister, who worked for Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, the big studio, she needed a vacation.
Yeah.
And I was finishing my third year of architecture, and she invited me to go to Europe, the two of us. And we bought a little car from Citroën for $900, a brand new Citroën, which I picked up in the factory in Paris. And we spent 2 months driving around Europe.
Yeah.
And when I got back to the United States, I decided to hell with architecture. I've got to find another career. And I was always interested in international relations and history and U.S. politics. I argued all the time with my father, who was very proud of American politics, and I was the young revolutionary, and so we argued a lot about politics, and I decided maybe there was something to be done in international relations. And so I switched to UCLA.
Yeah.
And became a student of international relations.
Perfect. And you served in many countries as a diplomat, and you have a great experience on that. How was the experience there? So you served in Peru, in Japan, in Brazil, El Salvador, Honduras, Bolivia, Croatia, beside Kosovo, because we'll talk later about Kosovo.
Number one, I entered the Foreign Service completely by, not mistake, but
accident.
By accident, almost. And I took the exams, I took a written exam when I was living in Spain. I went back to the States. I had passed, so they invited me to take the oral exams. To everyone's surprise, including my own, I passed that, and I was invited to join the Foreign Service.
Yeah.
You've described most of the countries I served in. I tell you, I cannot think of a career that I would have been happier in. Yeah. I thoroughly enjoyed 40 years in the Foreign Service. I enjoyed every one of those countries, even though Brazil was under a military dictatorship, El Salvador was, Bolivia was.
And you had also some relation also with politicians at that time in Brazil and all those countries.
Oh yeah, I was in the political side of the embassies, so I was issued the instructions, to pay attention to politics, human rights, the good side of what you're supposed to look at. And they sent me to countries where human rights were a big issue.
Yeah, of course.
And I was there in Bolivia when the cocaine trade was the big issue there. I was there in El Salvador during the Civil War twice as ambassador in the second time. And I went to places that people asked me, what was your favorite country to live in? And now, of course, I say Kosovo, but back then I always said I enjoyed every country I lived in.
So they used you only for difficult jobs, right? Not for easy jobs, not in easy countries, because El Salvador, Honduras, Bolivia, Brazil at that time, back at the time, it was very difficult to serve.
I was never to serve in London or in Paris or in Rome or in Fiji or in, none of that. Even in Japan, when I was there, it was after the war, and we were occupying Okinawa. It was under American administration, and there I was as a consular officer, but also very involved in the politics. So as I say, everything was an accident, and yet everything could not have been nicer for me.
A beautiful accident, but serving in those countries, you create a lot of sense of the countries, how the world is functioning, how geopolitics works.
Absolutely. And, my first overseas assignment was in Peru.
Yeah.
And the first week I got there, the embassy was attacked by a mob. The police came and threw tear gas, and I'm inside the embassy wondering if they're going to break in. And And that sort of was the pattern of my career.
Yeah.
I was always going places where the image of the United States was not universally admired.
At that time,
in some places, to be an American diplomat was, you know, people were telling you, be careful, you know, people here don't like the United States. Later, I mean, when I went to Croatia, of course, you know, America was well-liked in Croatia. And then I came to Kosovo, where America was popular everywhere.
Yeah.
So, like I say, every place I went, I learned something new about the world, about a specific country, about some of the issues that I thought I understood, but I didn't.
Yeah.
You know, I sort of thought America was admired all over the world, and I found out maybe it is by some people, but not by all people.
That's
and,
true.
Yeah.
So we'll talk a little bit also about your personal life. How did the passing of Uncle Bill impact you and your life and your career?
Shortly after I entered the Foreign Service, and I was told I was going to Peru for my first assignment, I got the telephone information that my Uncle Bill had passed away. He was 82. He went into the hospital for a simple operation, and he died on the operating table. And I wasn't able to leave Washington and go back to California to be there when he was buried, and I felt very badly about that. And the same thing happened when my mother passed away. I was overseas, and I could not get back in time for the funeral. When my father died, I was overseas in North Africa on an inspection tour in Tunisia. There, they got me back in time for the funeral. But how did it affect me? I learned that there are sacrifices in the Foreign Service. You're not always with the people you know and love when bad things happen or good things happen. So Uncle Bill's passing was very sad because he had been very important in my life in a different way from my father and my mother, you know, who dealt with me as their child. But he dealt with me as a young person he wanted to help get into a worthwhile career in life, and he did that.
Yeah, and a big shock was also when your wife passed away. How did you cope with that situation? I saw the media at that time in Kosovo. They covered that.
They did,
many
yeah.
Albanians came also to bury her.
That's right. That's exactly right. No, she was my second wife.
Yes.
I had a first marriage just before I left Washington, just after hearing that Uncle Bill had passed away. I was introduced to a young lady from California. She had also just suffered a death. Her fiancé, who was a world-famous ice skater, was in a plane crash here in Europe coming over with his sister to compete in the Olympics. And so she was, I don't know, for some reason we hit it off, and within just a few months of knowing each other, we decided to get married. And we had 10 years being married, and when we split up, separated, I was in Brazil at the time. She did not like being in the Foreign Service, living overseas, being away from her parents. Yeah. So we separated and got divorced. By then, I had already met my second wife, who was Brazilian, and she came to the States, got her master's degree, was very well educated, although she was from a very humble background in Brazil. And in 2005, after having 2 children, we went to the doctors one day, and she was told she had brain cancer. And so for the last 2 years of her life, we suffered with her going through cancer and chemotherapy and all the problems. And 2 years later, she passed away. Very sad. I had brought her to Kosovo. I brought her here in November 1999 to show her what I had done in Kosovo and why Kosovo was so important to me. And Daisy was her name, and she fell in love with Kosovo. But she passed away in 2009. The brain cancer finally killed her. And I'm now engaged to my third wife, who is very similar to that second wife, Daisy. And the curious thing is, her name is also Daisy.
Daisy. That's very interesting.
Yeah, and one of my granddaughters is also named Daisy, so I'm always confused with who I'm talking to.
Yeah.
But no, I've been very fortunate. All three wives were.
So many people in Kosovo, they want to know if Ambassador Walker has children. So what they are doing, what they are studying.
I have 4 children, 3 sons and 1 daughter. My first marriage produced a son, my oldest child, and a daughter. And then my marriage to the Brazilian, to that Daisy, produced 2 additional children, both of whom are boys. As you know, some families, the 4 children are totally distinct one from the other, totally different personalities. They all spent some time with me in overseas.
Also in Kosovo?
Yes. My oldest son was with me in Croatia. He worked for a while with the United Nations there. And then he came to Pristina with me. And the story about him is kind of sad because right now he went to Bolivia after living in Prague for 20-some years. He went to Bolivia about a year ago, and he got there and had a stroke a week after he got there. So he is almost incapable of moving. He can barely walk. He can barely talk. He's being well taken care of in Bolivia, but Bolivia is a far distant place, and I can't go there.
Of course.
And he can't come to the States, so that's a sad part of my family. My daughter from that first marriage is, grew up in California. She went with her mother when we were divorced, and she's married and has given me grandchildren, granddaughters, very happy. And then my Brazilian wife's children, my 2 sons from my second marriage, they are both married. They both have produced grandchildren for me. So I've got a good-sized family. It's not a Kosovo or Albanian family with
big
dozens and dozens, but it's for an American family, it's sizable.
That's true. And you mentioned Kosovo many times. When you come to Kosovo, who is the first Albanian which you are meeting here?
I never come into, the Yasari International Airport.
Yes.
Without the first person, I first go through immigration, and there's always, welcome Ambassador Walker. But the first person I meet is with me today, Hasan Salihu.
Yeah.
He is my man in Kosovo, or I'm his man in Kosovo. Very close friend. He's going to be a best man at my wedding, even though he's now living in Nairobi, Kenya for the last couple of months. But he met me this time. So I would say here, he's the first person I meet, and usually the person I'm with 12 hours a day.
But you have also many friends in Kosovo. What do you love the most in Kosovo? Is the food? Is the people? Are the cities?
If I have to pick the one thing I most like to encounter here, or that I most like to say hello to, it's the kids, it's the children. And it's true in the diaspora. When I go to a Albanian event in the United States, a wedding or a reception or marriage, or when I come here and see the kids, number one, they are so well behaved. Number two, when they're 4 years of age, they get up and give a speech or they recite a poem or something. Even the kids in the diaspora, the little kids, they speak Albanian.
Yeah.
I am very impressed, and I love to meet the kids. You know, most of them know nothing. Who is Walker? Who is this guy that my parents are introducing me to? But within a minute, they warm up and say something cute.
Yeah.
So I love the kids here and in the diaspora.
Perfect.
Albanian kids are something to admire.
Yeah.
Next, I guess, is just the people, the general people. You know, so many of them come up and say, you know, nice things to me. And I'm embarrassed most of the time by what they say. And I don't, quite often, I don't know how to respond. I will tell you one of my stupid stories that I tell.
Yeah.
When I came here after my second wife, Daisy, passed away, and it was news here. It was in the papers that she had passed away. And within a couple of weeks, I came here on business, whatever it was. And I always liked leaving the hotel and going out and walking along Mother Teresa Boulevard there. And I'm used to people coming up and, you know, asking for a selfie or talking. But the first person I met was a man, and I was surprised because the first thing he said was he offered condolences.
Yeah.
You know, I've heard your wife passed away. I'm so sorry, you know. And I thought, wow. And I wasn't quite sure how to answer, not knowing if he spoke English or, you know. And the second thing he said, which really surprised me, was he said, Ambassador, are you thinking about getting married again? And I said, I'm not sure. He said, well, you know, I've got an aunt who I'd love to introduce you to him. And I thought, this is really strange. And during that visit, I had a number of people offer condolences and then ask if I was interested in meeting a...
We have a name for those people. They called mesit.
Oh, really?
People who introduce you to a girl or something like that.
Yeah.
Called in Albanian mesit. So it was a professional profession back in the time.
Well, after that encounter, I sort of thought that I would be certainly married within a few years, and it would certainly be to an Albanian Kosovar woman. But instead, I survived more than 10 years since my second wife died, and instead I met someone from El Salvador, and now I'm going to get married to a young lady, not a young lady, she's a grandmother. I don't know why.
Which city you like more in Kosovo?
Well, I enjoy going to Peja.
Peja.
As a place that I go to because I've got friends there.
Me too.
Okay, good.
My wife is from Peja, so that's why.
Yeah. No, I go to Peja, and I always enjoy myself in Peja. But the closest I've sort of come to knowing a woman here, they've been from Jakova.
Jakova.
2 or 3 women from Jakova that I've met. And I don't know, in Washington, a lot of Kosovar men that I meet, I ask them, are you married? And they say, yes, my wife's from Jakova. So I assume everybody wants a wife from Jakova. I don't know. But no, I am, you know, I shouldn't say that. A man of my age who's going to be married in 2 weeks. Kosovo has some really beautiful women. Beautiful in all senses of the word beautiful. Physically beautiful, intellectually beautiful, and just beautiful as a person. I'm you know, I've told you I love the kids here, but I also meet some very, very interesting women here. And everywhere I go, including yesterday when I was in Viti, I congratulated the city council there because half of the members are women.
Yeah.
And when I left here in 2000, not many women were in politics. Now, you know, when I hear that the American University here, over 50% of the students coming in are women, I'm even more impressed by the female population of Kosovo.
There are legends in Kosovo that are saying that the best and the most beautiful women are from Peja.
Oh,
You know?
really? Okay.
Yeah. But being in Peja, together with you, we will comment on some pictures which you will see here.
Okay.
So we have a photo from an event together with Ibrahim Rugova. So do you remember this picture?
Oh, I remember that picture, sure.
Yeah.
Well, that was when I was leaving, and he presented me with this. Well, I think it was just before that he presented me with this picture, which I have now in my living room in Maryland, and it's in the center of my living room. And every time an Albanian comes to visit me, they always want to take a picture like that. That was Dr. Rugova, President Rugova, giving me my sort of farewell present. And it's a picture of an older man from one of the elders of Rachak, who unfortunately passed away a few years ago. And every time I would go to Rachak from 2000 to 2010, this old man would greet me. And for some reason, Dr. Rugova had that picture made. And I'm very proud to have that in my living room.
What was your relationship with Rugova? So what's your thoughts on Rugova's
When I met
policy?
Dr. Rugova, he was quote-unquote president of Kosovo, having been elected in a sort of a semi-official election before the war. And when I met him then, it was always, I was the head of the OSCE mission here, and our meetings were very formal. I think he was a pretty formal person to begin with, but I didn't establish any sort of friendship with him. Really, we met as, the diplomat in country with the president. After liberation, and I met him a few times, it was a little different. It was friendlier, and that picture is an indication of him being very nice to me, very friendly with me, and it was a different relationship, much warmer. But as I say, Dr. Rugova, in my opinion, was very European, very French, very intellectual, and I'm not any of that. I'm neither. And I've had my problems with France over the years. But we had a good relationship, and that picture is reflective of that.
So the second picture, which you will see, is another president of Kosovo. It's Hashim Thaçi.
I had until he became president, I had a relationship with him like I had with Ramush or with the other political, Lima, you name them. He was someone I would visit almost every time I came here. During most of his presidency, I was critical of Hashim Thaçi. I often said some things that I look back on that were pretty nasty about Hashim Thaçi, mostly about the government at the time. Only in the last weeks of his presidency, I was over here, and a dinner was given in my honor by himself and by Beja Pazzoli, and it was with a good number of people. And at the end of the dinner, I felt kind of mellow, and I got up and said a few words, and I looked at President Thaçi and I said, I regret now that I've said so many negative things about you, and some of them I hope you didn't take them personally. And I didn't know how he might respond. But he got up and said some very, very nice things. He said, I remember many of the things you've said, but I never took them to be personal criticism. I always took them to be, you're trying to make me and Kosovo a better place. And, no hard feelings. And I changed my perception of Hashim Thaçi. And then when he ran into the difficulties he's in right now, not just because I feel that he's undergoing a very unjust prosecution in The Hague, I also felt obligated to try and do something to make things better for him, and for Kadri Vasili, and for Jakub Krasniqi. I think they are being very unfairly treated by the court in The Hague, and I've been trying to do what I can to help, and hope to appear as a defense witness when the prosecution finally ends their prosecution. So I feel that I was very unfair to him when he was president, that I personalized some things that I shouldn't have, and I would like to contribute to justice being done in The Hague, which I don't think is taking place right now.
And we will have now another picture. It should be...
Can I ask where you got these pictures?
It's easy to find. It's easy to find. We'll have now Behçet Paçoli, I think.
Oh, okay.
So Behçet Paçoli is also a friend of yours, so
He
you
is.
have also a good relationship
Oh, my goodness.
to him. So just some comments on Behçet Paçoli and your relation to him.
I met him in 2002, 2003. I went to Lugano, Switzerland. I was told this was a man from Kosovo who had made a lot of money in his businesses, and that I should approach him and see if he would help with a donation to an American university here. And I went over there, and he treated me like Kosovar Albanians all treat me, only he had a beautiful hotel and put me in the presidential suite, and really couldn't have been kinder, and also could not have been more generous in terms of helping the American University of Kosovo become the institution it is today. And over the past 20 years, 22, 3 years that I've known him, he's always been extremely kind to me whenever I've gone to see him. Over the years, I've, had dinner at his house many times. I've met his family. I know his wife, Masha. As I say, we have a personal relationship. When Behçet got into politics here, I think back then it was just what I was trying to help Vetvidosje.
Yeah.
Trying to help them become a political party, trying to help them get into election politics, because I thought they represented something that Kosovo needed, which was a left-wing, young party that was being criticized by the American embassy, for instance, and wouldn't talk to them, wouldn't talk to Albin Kurti. At the same time, Behçet was also getting into politics, and he formed a party. And I think either he didn't understand or I didn't understand that our personal friendship should not be influenced by what we were doing in politics. Behçet was trying to get his party going, and I was going out saying positive things about Vetvidosje. So we had a period there where, we didn't see each other as often as I would have liked. In the last few years, we've seen each other. Once I went to see Behçet in New York, and he, let's have lunch, Walker, and he showed up with Hashim Thaçi. He was always trying to get me to be a little less critical of Hashim Thaçi. I don't know. We have what I consider a very positive relationship.
Perfect.
And, I hear criticism of Behçet in terms of politics, and I get upset by that. He's a very patriotic and a very generous person when it comes to Kosovo. He's very proud to have been president at one time.
So another picture is also Madam President Vjosa Osmani. So what's the relationship with her?
I wouldn't say we have a relationship exactly. I met her, maybe 6 months before she became a candidate, when she was convincingly elected. I met her when she had sort of broken away from LDK, and we had a good meeting. She was perfect in English. She told me why she had broken away from Avni Mustafa and the rest of LDK. And, that was the first time I met her. When she was a candidate for election, I came out and I thought said very positive things about a woman running for president, the second candidate woman, and I'm always saying good things about the women of Kosovo.
Yeah.
And she called me a week or 2 weeks before the election, surprised me by saying that there was a story in the papers here that she had done something to say that if she became president, she was going to cancel a contract I had with the foreign ministry to help the foreign ministry develop diplomats. And she called to say that was not true. And so I said, I'm supportive of your candidacy. I hope you win. Good luck. And she said that she would be in contact with me. And the next thing I knew, she was president. And I didn't hear from her again. I met her a year ago for the first time after her becoming president. I was here with my now fiancée, Daisy, the third Daisy in my life. And we had an appointment to see her, and we went to see her at the presidency. And unfortunately, after 2 or 3 minutes, she was told she had an appointment or she had to fly someplace. So I only saw her for a couple of minutes. And that's the only contact I've had with her. I can't make out who's in that picture.
It will appear Albin Kurti. So.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, look at the picture.
Yes.
Albin is very stiff looking, and I've got my arms crossed like I am here. I just had a meeting with him.
Yeah.
An hour and a half. Albin I've known for 26 years. I met him when he was with Adam Damaci when I came here at the beginning. I met him within my first 2 or 3 weeks in Kosovo. And when I've come to Kosovo, I've always wanted to see him. I've seen him often. I saw him in Washington a year ago. Albin is so bright. Albin, like in our conversation we just had, we talked about U.S. politics, which is interesting. He knows more about Donald Trump than I do. And I know a lot about Donald Trump. We talked about how the situation is here. Again, obviously, he knows so much more about what is happening here, what is happening in Europe, what is happening at NATO. He is terribly well informed and can, in a very articulate way, tell me what he's thinking. And I have seldom disagreed with what he has been telling me, or I've seldom been critical of what he has done as prime minister. In fact, I can't remember anything. When people have called me up to say, the United States or EU are criticizing the prime minister of Kosovo because he's done this or he's done that, I have always been totally shocked because, in my opinion, he's been doing a good job, a very good job. And, when I hear, he's not even Kosovar, he's from some other place, and he's being difficult with the EU or he's being difficult with the United States, it's their fault. It's not his fault. I think he's doing, I have been in agreement with what he's doing in terms of North Mitrovica and what he's doing with license plates, what he's doing with invasions,
Yeah.
and in what he's doing in terms of the dialogue. So I admire him. I respect him very much. I really do. And you know, when I'm in Washington and people ask me about Alvin Kurtin, tell me, "Oh, have you heard the latest?" You know, usually it's BS. It's stupid rumors and stupid stuff. I don't know. I just don't listen anymore.
And last but not least is Ramush Haradinaj.
Oh, okay.
So what's the relationship with Ramush?
You don't have a picture? Oh, you do have a picture. Okay. Well, Ramush I've known for a long time also. I met him first as a politician and one of the leaders, a KLA hero and all that kind of stuff. I came here when he was prime minister the first time. He had been named prime minister just a few days before, and I went to see him to call on him. And he told me he was heading for The Hague. He had been indicted in The Hague. So he was going, you know, he volunteered. He gave up his prime ministership to go to The Hague, as did Thaci later. Again, something I admire in Kosovars. I don't admire the Serbs who have been indicted in The Hague. They've been dragged out kicking and screaming. These guys immediately went to The Hague and faced the tribunals. I haven't met him that often when I've come back. When he formed the party, the AAK, I still see him when I can. When he was confined in France, I was asked if I would give a speech at a big rally in front of Skenderbeg's statue here in Pristina, and I got up, much to my surprise, in front of 15,000 people, and I was able to say nasty things about France and how unjust it was that they were confining him in Basel, was it? Where it was? Anyway, I haven't spoken to Ramush much since then, and lately I'll tell him what I'm trying to do, and usually he says, Walker, let me suggest what you should be doing, and he'll give me some advice. And so we have a different relationship now.
A last question, actually, is about Rechak, because having you in our show and not asking about Rechak, it's you know, it's unusual.
Yeah.
So what is the meaning for you of Rechak? What is the relationship which you have with the people in Rechak, with their story?
The village of Rachak, for me, the people of the village of Rachak, I obviously have a great deal of sympathy for them, but I also have a great deal of admiration for them. The fact that they went through what they went through on January 15th of 1999, what happened to the men and boys of the village, what that meant for Kosovo, what that meant for the future of Kosovo, and I obviously think it changed everything. And now when I go to Rachak, it also represents what Kosovo has done in the last 25 years. You know, the people of Rachak are smiling. Their kids are going to school. They're living the life of the rest of Kosovo, which is also moved in a terribly positive direction. And so, in one sense, I still feel for what that village suffered and what it represented as the suffering of all of Kosovo's Albanian population before 1999, before 2000. But I also recognize that what they suffered has meant so much to what happened here after 2000. Liberation, independence, the Republic of Kosovo. I truly believe, and not because I was involved in it, but because what happened in Rachak was the catalyst for everything that came afterwards. And I really did not believe, not because I was involved in it, I truly believed that the world's attention, the world's journalists' attention for a few weeks and then a few months and then a war, that was dramatic. All that happened as a result of what happened in Rachak on the 15th of January, 1999. And I have to think that 50%, 60% of the population of Kosovo who are under 30 years of age can understand what happened back then and how it has produced the life that you lead, the life that that band leads, the life that Albin Kurtin leads. You know, if Rachak had not happened, and then what happened later, Albin Kurtin would not only be prime minister here, he would probably be back in a Serb prison someplace because he would have continued doing what he did before the war with Adam Domaci. And so when I think of Rachak, I think of all that. And I want, you know, I appreciate when people say, Walker, you know, thank you for telling the truth. That was my job. I was supposed to tell the truth. Not all the people who told me to tell the truth were happy that I told the truth. I haven't heard from OSCE since the day I left here. Not one time. I haven't been asked by one person at the State Department about what happened here. Zero. So, okay, other things were happening in the world. I understand that. But here, I am still asked about Rachak, as you just did. And I think what happened at Rachak and what followed, very important.
We will end this interview with a happy end. Ayat Hussein, a friend of mine, who is the owner of Silva Gallery, brought for you something, not for you, for your wife, Daisy.
Oh, dear.
So it's filigree and it's handmade.
Oh, my God, that's beautiful.
So it's for your wife, a present.
A wedding gift.
A wedding gift.
Thank him very much. That's beautiful. She will love that. She will absolutely love that. Well, thank him very much.
Thanks to you, Ambassador.
No, thanks
very much, Ambassador Walker.
No, I enjoyed it.
It was a great pleasure for me.
No, it was a great pleasure to be here.
You are a personification of liberation of Kosovo, of independence of Kosovo. So you will be remembered anytime from all Albanians across the world. One last question from Uk Lushi from New York. He's saying, where's the book?
Uk, I haven't seen him in maybe 10 years.
Yes.
But when I met him, he was a KLA Atlantic Brigade veteran. And he was in graduate school. And he later got his PhD, I guess. And he's been writing books.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen him. But he at least would understand. Writing a book is no fun. Writing a book is, you have to forget other things.
Yeah.
He can do it. I'm not very good at it. I thought I was a great writer. That's all you do in the Foreign Service.
He was asking where you publish your book.
I'm going to publish it here. I have offers from some very, very good, decent people here who want to publish it.
Perfect.
In Albanian, I hope, and then in English. And I am embarrassed to say I've been working on this book for 25 years. I told the people in Rachak when I went with my wife Daisy in 2000, I'm going to write a book, and its title is going to be Rachak.
Perfect.
And I'm still working on it.
We're all waiting for that.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Walker.
Thank you very much.
Shikues nderuar, me intervistën me ambasadorin William Walker përmbyllim ZEN 2-shën, shihemi javën tjetër. Faleminderit.
Kombinimi e heterogeni interesante shumë.
Se punu makina aty, ka pru aty bashkë, ka pru se ka pak, nuk jam antar i libertadores. Të zoti Mustafa s'mund të thonë presidenti i Kosovës.